My name is Lauren, and I'm 28 years old. 3 months ago, I walked into my childhood home carrying a set of keys. Not just any keys. The keys to the house my parents had been renting for the past 15 years. They had no idea I was their landlord. I know how that sounds. Trust me. I've replayed this moment 1,000 times in my head. The look on my mother's face when I told her the truth. The way my father's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. The absolute silence that filled our kitchen for what felt like an eternity. But let me back up. Because this story isn't really about real estate or revenge. It's about a 28-year-old woman who spent her entire childhood sleeping in a converted garage, while her younger brother got the bedroom that should have been hers. If you're watching this right now, you probably know what it feels like to be the forgotten child, the one who gets the hand-me-downs and the leftovers, the one whose needs always come second. I'm sharing this story because I need you to understand something important. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can be the ones who hurt you the deepest. The garage wasn't even properly insulated. I remember lying on my thin mattress during winter nights, watching my breath form little clouds in the cold air. The concrete floor made everything echo. My brother Tyler's room was directly above mine. I could hear him playing video games until 2 a.m. Hear him on phone calls with friends, talking about parties I was never invited to. My parents always had an excuse. Tyler needed the room because he was studying for college applications. Tyler needed space because he was having behavioral issues. Tyler needed privacy because he was going through a difficult phase. There was always something that made Tyler's needs more important than mine. I was 14 when they first moved me to the garage. 14. That's when most kids are figuring out who they are, making friends, trying to fit in at school. Instead, I was learning how to heat my room with a space heater my grandmother secretly bought me for Christmas. The worst part wasn't even the cold or the isolation. It was the way my parents talked about it. Like it was this amazing gift they were giving me. Lauren's so independent, they'd tell neighbors. She loves having her own space. They made it sound like I'd chosen to live out there. Like sleeping in a garage was some kind of teenage rebellion instead of what it really was, abandonment. That's a harsh word, isn't it? But that's what it felt like every single night. Abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect me, who were supposed to make sure I had a warm, safe place to sleep. My friends at school had no idea. I became really good at making excuses. Why they couldn't come over for sleepovers. Why I never invited anyone to birthday parties. Why I always wanted to hang out at their houses instead of mine. I built this elaborate fantasy about my living situation. Made it sound quirky and fun instead of heartbreaking and cold. The thing about living in a garage is that you hear everything. Every conversation happens right above your head or just outside your door. I heard my parents talking about college, funds. How Tyler would need money for university applications, for test prep courses, for a new laptop. I heard them worry about whether they could afford to send him to his first choice school. I never heard them worry about my future. When I was 16, I got my first job at a local grocery store. 20 hours a week, minimum wage, but it was mine. My parents were thrilled. Not because I was showing initiative or responsibility, but because it meant I could start paying for my own things. My own food, my own clothes, my own everything. Tyler never had to get a job in high school. His time was too valuable for work. He needed to focus on his grades, his college applications, his future. Meanwhile, I was bagging groceries and mopping floors, saving every penny I could in a coffee can hidden under my mattress. That coffee can was the beginning of everything that happened next. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to. Hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. Because what I did next changed everything. Not just for me, but for my entire family. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm proud of it or ashamed of it. Maybe both. To understand what I did, you need to understand my family. And fair warning, they're complicated. My mother, Patricia, is the kind of woman who smiles constantly, but never seems actually happy. She works as a receptionist at a dental office and has this way of making everything sound like a question. Lauren, could you maybe help with dinner tonight? Even when it wasn't really a question at all. She grew up poor, which I think explains a lot about how she treated Tyler and me. She was terrified of not having enough, of not being able to provide. But instead of that fear making her more protective of both her children, it made her choose favorites. Tyler was her investment in the future. I was just another mouth to feed. My father, Robert, is quieter but somehow more frustrating. He's a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing plant. Good with his hands, terrible with emotions. He's the type of man who shows love by fixing things. Except he never seemed to notice that the things in my life needed fixing too. Dad would spend entire weekends helping Tyler build science fair projects or teaching him how to change oil in the car. Meanwhile, the lock on my garage door had been broken for 2 years. I had to prop a chair against it every night just to feel safe. When I tried to bring it up, Dad would nod and say, "I'll get to it, kiddo." But he never did. There was always something more important, something Tyler needed first. Then there's Tyler himself. 3 years younger than me, but you'd never know it from how our parents treated him. He's smart, I'll give him that. Straight A's, student council, Varsali track team. The golden child who could do no wrong. But here's what my parents never saw. Tyler was cruel. Not in obvious ways. He was too smart for that. He was cruel in the way that older brothers usually are, except he was younger. He'd eat the last of something he knew I'd been looking forward to. He'd interrupt me when I was talking to friends on the phone. He'd accidentally break things that belonged to me. The worst part was how he'd act innocent afterward. I didn't know that was Lauren's. I thought she was done with that. She never told me she wanted it. My parents always believed him. Always. I remember one Christmas when I was 17. I'd saved up for months to buy myself a small TV for the garage. Nothing fancy, just a basic model from a thrift store so I could watch movies on cold nights. I wrapped it up and put it under the tree as a gift to myself. It sounds pathetic now, but I was proud of it. Christmas morning came, and Tyler opened his pile of expensive gifts. Video games, new clothes, a laptop for college applications. I had 3 small presents, a sweater from my grandmother, some body lotion from my aunt, and my own TV that I'd bought and wrapped myself. Tyler looked at my TV and said, "Oh, cool. I didn't know you were getting electronics this year." Before anyone could say anything, he'd plugged it into the wall outlet near his chair. "This will be perfect for my room." I tried to explain that I'd bought it myself, with my own money, for my own space. But somehow the conversation turned into Tyler needing the TV more because he was studying for SATs, because his room was more comfortable for family movie nights. Because. I never saw that TV again. That's when I realized something important. My family didn't see me as an equal member. They saw me as a resource. Someone who could contribute labor and money, but whose own needs were always negotiable. My grandmother, Nana Rose, was the only one who seemed to understand. She'd visit every few months and always made a point to spend time with me in the garage. She'd bring me hot chocolate and actual presents, things she'd picked out just for me. "Your parents don't know how to love two children equally," she told me once. "They think love is finite, like there's only so much to go around." Nana Rose died when I was 19. She left me $5,000 in her will. Not a huge amount, but more money than I'd ever had at once. My parents suggested I use it for college tuition or maybe contribute to household expenses. I had a different idea. I took that $5,000 and opened my first investment account. Started learning about stocks, bonds, real estate. I read every book I could find about building wealth. Not because I was particularly interested in money, but because I was interested in independence. I was interested in power. And power, I was learning, required resources they couldn't take away from me. Working 20-hour weeks and living in a garage teaches you things about money that most people never learn. Every dollar matters when you're buying your own food and paying for your own phone bill at 17. I became obsessed with finding deals, discount groceries, thrift store clothes, free entertainment. I learned to stretch a dollar further than most adults could. But more importantly, I learned to invest the difference. By the time I turned 20, that $5,000 from Nana Rose had grown to almost $12,000. I was working full-time at a local bank by then, having skipped college because my parents made it clear there was no money for my education. Tyler's college fund remained untouched, of course. The bank job changed everything. Not just because of the steady income, but because I was surrounded by people who understood money. Real money, investment money, retirement planning and portfolio management and compound interest. My supervisor, Janet, was a 40-something woman who'd built her own wealth through careful investing and smart real estate choices. She noticed how eager I was to learn and started mentoring me during lunch breaks. "You're young," she'd say. "Time is your biggest asset right now. Every dollar you invest today is worth $10 later if you're smart about it." I was very smart about it. I also discovered something interesting through my job at the bank. The house my parents were renting, the one they'd lived in for 15 years, the one where Tyler got the bedroom and I got the garage. It was owned by an elderly man named Mr. Henderson who lived 3 states away. Mr. Henderson was 87 years old and tired of being a landlord. He'd been trying to sell the property for 2 years, but couldn't find a buyer willing to deal with existing tenants. Most investors wanted empty properties they could flip or renovate. I started watching the listing price drop every few months, started calculating mortgage payments versus rental income, started imagining what it would feel like to own the house where I'd spent my teenage years feeling unwanted. The idea was crazy. I was 22 years old with a bank job and some savings, but the more I researched, the more possible it seemed. The house was undervalued because of the tenant situation. The monthly rent my parents paid was actually above market rate because they'd never wanted to move and risk losing their housing. I had enough for a down payment. I had stable income. I had a relationship with lending officers at my own bank who knew my financial habits. Most importantly, I had motivation that went deeper than just investment returns. Have you ever wanted to rewrite a story that felt unchangeable? That's exactly what I was planning to do. It took me 6 months to arrange the financing, another 3 months to negotiate with Mr. Henderson's estate. He'd passed away during the process, which made things complicated, but also dropped the price even further. During this entire time, I was still living in that garage, still listening to Tyler's video games above my head, still heating my space with the same old space heater, still watching my parents worry about Tyler's college expenses while never once asking about my own future plans. The closing happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, signing document after document, feeling like I was performing some kind of magic trick. With each signature, I was transforming from the unwanted daughter sleeping in the garage to the person who actually owned the garage and the house it was attached to, and the power to decide who got to live there. Tyler had just been accepted to his dream college. Full tuition, room and board for 4 years. My parents had been celebrating for weeks, talking about how proud they were, how their investment in his education was finally paying off. They had no idea that their daughter, the one they'd relegated to the garage, now held their housing, security in her hands. I spent 3 weeks after closing just sitting with this knowledge, going to work every day, coming home to the garage, listening to my family talk about Tyler's bright future and their own financial struggles. Rent was due the first of every month, just like always. Except now they were paying it to me. The power was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. I could evict them. I could raise the rent. I could demand that Tyler move to the garage and I take his room. I could do anything I wanted. But what did I actually want? That was the question that kept me awake at night, staring at the ceiling of my garage bedroom, knowing I owned every inch of the space above my head. I decided to tell them on a Sunday morning in April. Tyler was home for spring break, and the whole family was gathered around the kitchen table for one of Mom's elaborate breakfast spreads. Pancakes, bacon, fresh fruit, cut into perfect little pieces. I'd been carrying the secret for a month. Every day felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for the right moment. Or maybe waiting for the courage to create the right moment. I have something to tell you all, I said, setting down my coffee cup with hands that were surprisingly steady. Tyler looked up from his phone. Mom paused in the middle of cutting her pancakes. Dad actually made eye contact, which was rare. I bought something, I continued. Something important. Mom's face immediately scrunched with worry. This was her default expression whenever money came up. Lauren, honey, please tell me you didn't make some kind of expensive impulse purchase. You need to save your money for emergencies. The irony of her saying this while sitting in a house I now owned wasn't lost on me. I bought this house, I said simply. The silence that followed was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It wasn't just quiet. It was this vacuum of comprehension where nobody could quite process what I'd just said. Tyler spoke first. What? Do you mean you bought this house? I mean, I bought this house. This house we're sitting in right now. I'm your new landlord. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. That's not possible. Mr. Henderson owns this house. Mr. Henderson died 6 months ago. His estate sold it to me. I've been your landlord for 37 days. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Copies of the deed, the mortgage documents, the death certificate that had started this whole chain of events. I spread them across the breakfast table like I was dealing cards. This is some kind of joke, Mom said, but her voice was shaky. She was looking at the documents, trying to find some explanation that made sense in her world, where her garage-dwelling daughter couldn't possibly own anything significant. Tyler grabbed the deed and started reading. His face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, and then something that looked almost like respect. Holy shit, Lauren! You actually did this! Language, Mom said automatically, but her heart wasn't in it. Dad was just staring at me like he'd never seen me before. How did you afford this? How did you even know it was for sale? I work at a bank, Dad. I know things about money. I know things about credit and loans and investment opportunities. I've known things for years, but nobody ever asked. The truth was tumbling out faster than I'd planned. Years of resentment mixed with this strange pride in what I'd accomplished. You've all been so focused on Tyler's future that you never once asked about mine. You never asked if I had plans or dreams or goals. You just assumed I'd always be the kid in the garage, grateful for whatever scraps of attention you threw my way. That's not fair, Mom protested. We've always supported you. You made me live in a garage, Mom. For 4 years, a garage. while Tyler got the bedroom and the college fund and the piano lessons and the family vacations I was too expensive to include in. Tyler had gone very quiet. He was still holding the deed, reading it over and over like the words might change. "What do you want?" Dad asked finally. His voice was different now, smaller. "Do you want us to move out? Do you want to raise the rent? What's this about?" That was the question I'd been asking myself for weeks. What did I want? "I want you to understand what it feels like to have your housing security depend on someone else's generosity," I said. "I want you to know that every month, when you write that rent check, you're writing it to the daughter you forgot about. The one whose needs never mattered as much as Tyler's." "We never forgot about you," Mom whispered. "You moved me to the garage so Tyler could have my room." "That was temporary." 4 years, Mom. 4 years is not temporary. 4 years is a choice. Tyler finally looked up from the documents. "So, what happens now?" I took a deep breath. This was the moment everything would change, one way or another. Now we figure out what kind of family we actually are. Are we the kind where everyone's needs matter equally? Or are we the kind where some people sleep in garages while others get everything they want? "We can change," Dad said quickly. "We can fix this." "Can you?" "Because I've been waiting 28 years for you to see me as more than just Tyler's less important older sister." The kitchen fell silent again. Outside, I could hear our neighbors starting their lawnmower, children playing in their backyard. Normal Sunday sounds from normal families. We were about to find out what kind of family we really were. The conversation lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of crying, yelling, explaining, and slowly beginning to understand each other in ways we never had before. Mom cried the most. These gut-wrenching sobs when she realized how her fear of not having enough had created a hierarchy where Tyler's needs always came first. She kept saying, "I thought I was protecting our family's future. I thought I was being practical." Dad got angry initially, not at me, but at himself. He started listing all the things he should have fixed in the garage over the years. The broken lock, the poor insulation, the way the concrete floor made everything cold and damp. "I kept meaning to make it better for you," he said. "I kept putting it off because Tyler needed something else first." Tyler surprised me the most. I expected defensiveness or anger. Instead, he was quiet for a long time, just listening. Finally, he said, "I never knew you felt forgotten. I thought you liked having your own space. I thought you were the independent one who didn't need as much attention." "I was independent because I had to be," I told him. "Because nobody was paying attention to whether I needed help." We talked about college, how they'd started a fund for Tyler when he was born, but never started one for me. How they'd assumed I wasn't college material because my grades weren't as high as his. How they'd never even asked what I wanted to study or where I might want to go. "You seemed so focused on working," Mom said. "So practical and grown up. We thought you'd figured out your own path." "I was 17, Mom. I was buying my own groceries and paying my own phone bill because nobody else was going to do it." "That's not being grown up. That's being abandoned." By the end of that conversation, we'd established some new ground rules. Tyler would spend his summer break converting the basement into a proper bedroom, not just throwing a mattress down there, but actually insulating it, installing proper flooring and lighting, making it a space that was warm and comfortable. I would move into Tyler's old room, the room that had been mine by rights for years before they decided I didn't need it as much as he did. Most importantly, we would start having family meetings. Real conversations about money, decisions, future, plans. Everyone would get a voice. Everyone's needs would be considered. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. Tyler went back to college 2 weeks later. Before he left, he did something that shocked me. He came out to the garage with a box wrapped in newspaper. "I've had this for 11 years, he said, handing it to me. "I always meant to give it back." Inside was my TV, the one I'd bought for myself when I was 17, the one he'd claimed for his room on Christmas morning. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I finally understand that it was never really mine," he said, "and because I want to be the kind of brother who deserves a sister like you." We both cried a little, not the dramatic sobbing kind of crying, but the quiet tears that come when you realize a relationship might actually be salvageable. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Mom started asking about my work, my investment plans, my interests outside of just contributing to household expenses. Dad fixed every broken thing in the house, starting with the garage lock I'd been without for years. But the biggest change was in how they saw me. I wasn't just the responsible one anymore, the one who could handle being ignored because she was so independent. I was their daughter, with needs and dreams and feelings that mattered just as much as Tyler's. 1 year later, I moved out of the house entirely. Not because things hadn't improved, but because I'd finally saved enough to buy my own place. A small condo downtown where I had my own space, my own rules, my own life. I kept the family house as a rental property, but I didn't keep my parents as tenants. Instead, I helped them buy it from me at a price they could actually afford. We worked out a payment plan that gave them ownership while giving me back my investment, plus a reasonable profit. They were my family, after all. And families, real families, help each other build wealth and security. Tyler graduated college debt-free thanks to their planning and sacrifice. But he also graduated with a deeper understanding of privilege and fairness. He got his first job and immediately started contributing to household expenses, not because he had to, but because he wanted to be part of a family where everyone contributed what they could. Today, I'm 31 years old. I own 3 rental properties and work as a financial advisor helping other young people build wealth from difficult circumstances. My relationship with my family isn't perfect, but it's honest in ways it never was before. Tyler and I text regularly now, real conversations, not just holiday pleasantries. He's dating someone serious and always asks if I want to meet her. He includes me in his life in ways he never did when we were younger. Mom calls me for advice about investments and retirement planning. She started reading financial books and taking community college courses in business. "I want to understand your world," she told me recently. Dad and I work together on house projects now. He's teaching me construction skills while I teach him about property values and tax implications. We're planning to flip a house together next year, an actual partnership where we both contribute our expertise. But here's what I learned that I want to share with anyone who's watching this and recognizing their own story and mine. Being treated unfairly by your family doesn't mean you're unworthy of love. It means your family has their own issues, their own fears, their own limitations that have nothing to do with your value as a person. Building wealth isn't just about money. It's about building power to change circumstances that feel unchangeable. It's about creating options when you feel trapped. It's about proving to yourself that you're capable of more than other people believed. But most importantly, what you do with that power defines who you are. I could have used my position as their landlord to get revenge. I could have made their lives difficult to pay them back for years of making mine difficult. Instead, I used it to start conversations we should have had years earlier. If you're the forgotten child in your family, the one whose needs always come second, I want you to know something. Your needs matter. Your dreams matter. Your future matters just as much as anyone else's. Start small. Save what you can. Learn what you can. Build what you can. Not for revenge, but for freedom. Not to hurt others, but to create choices for yourself. And if anyone watching this has treated their own children unequally, it's never too late to change. It's never too late to have the conversations that need to be had. It's never too late to see all of your children as equally deserving of love, support, and investment. My family story isn't unique. Favoritism happens in families everywhere, often with parents who love their children but don't know how to love them equally. Sometimes it takes a dramatic wake-up call to recognize patterns that have become invisible through repetition. If you've made it this far in the video, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt forgotten or overlooked by your family? Have you ever been the one whose needs came second? Drop a comment below and tell me about it. Sometimes just sharing these experiences helps us realize we're not alone. Or maybe you're a parent watching this, and you're recognizing patterns in your own family that need to change. It's never too late to start treating all your children with equal love and respect. Share this video with other parents who might need to hear this message. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real stories about family dynamics, financial independence, and finding your power in situations that feel powerless. I share these stories because I believe in the power of honest conversation to change lives. The house where I used to sleep in the garage? It's occupied by a young family now. 2 kids, both with their own bedrooms, both treated with equal love and attention. Sometimes I drive by and see toys in the front yard, bikes on the driveway, signs of a family where every child matters equally. That's how it should be. That's how it will be for the next generation, if those of us who experienced inequality have the courage to speak up and create change. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of a community that believes everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. Your story matters too, and I hope sharing mine gives you courage to change what needs changing in your own life. Remember, you're never too powerless to start building the life you deserve.